Well, you know, I
think God and Moses both just have enormous respect for each other.
One gladiator has that same right spirit as in that reincarnated.
Look, the judges are gone. Even the Egyptian judge is impressed.
Until recently, you claimed that the earth revolved around the sun.
Welcome to History Bites. I'm Rick Green. Some years ago, the United States was locked in a struggle with a corrupt, some would say evil nation, whose political system was based on the suppression of individual freedoms. Both sides used up vast resources in a deadly arms race to get the most advanced weapons technology in submarines, telecommunications, and aerial reconnaissance. This was not the Cold War, but the American Civil War, and the enemy nation was the CSA, the Confederate States of America. Now, Americans are obsessed with the wars that they've won and the wars that they've lost, and in the Civil War, they kind of did both. So, let's look back at the war which ended slavery and brought freedom. The freedom to speak, the freedom to vote, and the freedom to watch television.
Mr. President, this victory at Antietam is a godsend.
About time we won one.
finally.
And, Mr. President, we have to take another look at the slave issue.
What? The slavery issue is not on the table.
But this war is about slavery.
No, this war is about secession. Didn't you hear the president's speech? National integrity. That is to say, the integrity of the nation. One nation, indivisible, under Canada, and above Mexico.
Excuse me, but this civil war is about preserving our rights.
And exactly what rights are we talking
A
about?
civil war for civil rights, you dunderhead.
Sir, be civil.
How about the right to decide important issues in huge committees?
I second the motion.
I forfeit.
Gentlemen, what about the right?
The right to interrupt.
I was going to say the right
To interrupt each other.
No, the right to disagree with each other.
Nonsense.
Free speech.
Free
Yes, free speech.
Unless you don't pay your taxes.
Right.
Right.
And the right to speak in our own way. Yes. Damn it. Clipped sentences. Powerful, punchy.
The right to
Finish off each other's ideas.
And build on those ideas.
and build even further on those ideas.
Until we achieve a,
We now return to Slave Hunter on Confederate television.
For the Negro slaves to be truly happy, they have to be kept in areas where there are enough resources to support their population. But when an area becomes overcrowded, there may not be enough food to go around, and they may die. That's when it's up to Steve to go in and relocate some of the extra numbers.
There's a new slave baby in this group, and we're gonna get it out of here and transplant it into a new population about 30 miles from here. And there she is. And as you can see, she's watching us warily as we approach, preparing to strike at any moment. Okay, easy now.
I got her.
You ready?
Yeah, yes.
All right. Ropes! Ropes around the baby! Get it in there!
Watch your Steve.
Get another rope in there! Get a stick! All right, that's me. I want the baby. Go! She's got my leg! She's really biting into my leg! Look at all that blood!
This country was created by a bunch of people who were afraid to stand up and demand their independence. And I, for one, do not want to see this nation destroyed by a group of rebels who
have stood up and demanded their independence.
It does give one pause, Mr. President.
yes. Pause.
A long, dramatic pause.
Hello and welcome to Techno Talk. I'm Jay Ingram.
And I'm Jill Beacon.
We'll be looking at war. What do you think of war, Jill?
I hate it, Jay. I wish there was some way to end it.
Well, Jill, a number of scientists and inventors feel the same way. Tell me, Jill, did you ever find yourself
Quite often.
thinking, why can't Lincoln and Jefferson Davis just talk to each other and sort out their problems right away?
But of course, the problems of distance make that impossible.
Well, maybe not anymore. Joining us now is Mr. Otto Fanghorn, a senior executive with a telegraph company.
Hello, Jay, or should I say, dot.
Is that Morse code?
Do you know Morse code?
No.
Well, in that case, yes, it is Morse code.
Can you tell our viewers how this exciting new code will be used?
Well, I see Morse code emerging as a new international language. People will speak in Morse, shop in Morse, well, perhaps even make love in Morse.
Make love, not war.
Exactly. Well, in fact, right now, Morse code is being used to win this terrible civil war.
By allowing enemy leaders to communicate?
No, by allowing our generals to send orders to our troops so they can wipe out these rebels. This code will allow us to mop the battlefield with Confederate entrails.
Robert, what massive project will make crossing the continent safer and faster?
Exterminating Indians?
The Transcontinental Railway. Jerome, what is President Lincoln's nickname?
Lurch.
Honest Abe. Michael, what religious sect believes the Native American Indians are the lost tribes of Israel?
The Zionist Apaches.
The Mormons. Robert, what phrase expresses Americans' belief this continent is theirs to settle and tame?
Exterminating Indians?
Manifest destiny.
The North went to war to stop the South from leaving the happy United States family. How's that for tough love? The main reason the South wanted to leave was the slavery issue. Many Northerners wanted to abolish slavery, but for the South, slavery was like a pair of smelly old sneakers. If you get rid of them, you may have more friends, but you'll be a lot less comfortable.
Hi, Jill.
Mr. Whitney, could you explain how these new machines will help put an end to slavery?
Well, Jill, separating the cotton fibers from the seeds used to be nail-breaking work.
But now that's changed.
Well, that's right, Jill. These new cotton engines can separate the cotton fibers from the cotton seeds automatically using an exciting new technology we call rotating spikes. It'll do the same work in 1/50th of the time.
Now, this machine looks pretty complicated. Is it hard to use?
Whoa, a child of 4 could operate it, and, well, in fact, they do. And that means big savings. Do you know how little you pay a child of 4?
I hate to say it, Mr. President, but the only way to end this war may be to let the South go their own way.
Makes sense to me.
You know, Mr. President, I really didn't like mint juleps all that much anyway.
It may be our best option, Mr. President. Let the South secede. The Confederacy leave. I mean, who needs Georgia or Florida or Alabama or Tennessee?
Let the South have South Carolina and North Carolina.
And Virginia.
My wife?
No, the state.
It sounds almost too good to be true. An income for our little children, and slaves don't have to work in the cotton factories.
Oh, yes, it'll free them from the factories and allow them to do their slave labor in the cotton field.
That is, once we have peace again.
Yep, and we Whitneys are doing our best to help bring that peace about with our latest mass-produced product.
What is it?
Muskets.
Gentlemen, before you make that decision, you should remember the departure of the South will have one other consequence for this country of ours.
The continuation of slavery?
The route of the Transcontinental Railroad.
A nation diminished, a dream defeated.
If I may speak bluntly, Mr. President,
Awkward, Mr. President.
It's just no good without the Southern Star.
As a military man, Mr. President, I have to say that the composition is all wrong.
I guess we keep fighting. I'm putting General Grant in charge.
Good idea.
In charge of the flag or the army? When we come back, 50 ways to leave the Union. hard to believe that the land of personal freedom and liberty was once torn apart by the issue of slavery. And it's hard to imagine the mindset of people who lived in the Confederacy. If the United States was torn by conflict, well, so were many Southerners. Many of them felt deep down that slavery was wrong, but they were afraid that ending it would be dangerous. They lived in a kind of fantasy world, turning a blind eye to slavery and focusing on romance and the fine points of etiquette. And the lack of realism didn't stop there.
Look at what we've got here. This is a white abolitionist. Looks like a young female, probably a Quaker.
Slavery goes against the laws of man and God. Only an evil man could support it, for what applies to the white man must also apply to the black. The Constitution states that all men are equal.
The Constitution also protects our right to protect our property, doesn't it? Stuff me didgeridoo! We were in the middle of a debate and she used inductive reasoning and an ad hominem argument, and then she bit me. I let my guard down, and in my line of work, that can be deadly.
Especially since that was your index finger.
Too right. Now we're going to tag the abolitionist. This red-hot SS brand stands for slave stealer. It'll help us track her movements so we can find out more about these beautiful but endangered liberal creatures. She's been sedated with a few wallops, so this really doesn't hurt. All right, hold her there, Bruce. Oh, sorry, Bruce. Now, sorry about that. All right, now her. That was me. All right, hold it down. Brand's not very hot. And good, got her. Crikey, look at that. Isn't that a beauty? There she goes. Off into the wild again.
They're rioting in New York. Negroes have been lynched. They're sending in the troops to help quell it. Like it or not, Mr. President, slavery may be abhorred by most, but not all.
Abhorred or not, in the South, slavery is an economic reality.
Slavery is an abomination.
Our troops are weary. Victory seems distant. We must claim the moral high ground.
It'll backfire on us, Mr. President. Missouri may switch and join sides with the rebels.
This proclamation will only free the slaves in the South. Did you even read this? We aren't freeing slaves in areas that support us. We're only freeing the slaves of our enemies.
They aren't our slaves to free.
They are if we win the war.
They should be no one's slaves.
Coming up, we have the 5th Vermont Fife and Drum Corps with more patriotic ballads. But first, in our audience tonight, the man who made drinking wine safe again. Thanks to his brilliant scientific mind, decent, honest American citizens can drink wine without getting ill from germs. That's right, we can now drink till we puke. Mr. Louis Pasteur, take a bow, Louis.
Seems to me that these freed slaves in the South would create another headache for the Confederate forces.
Reduce their manpower.
Guerrilla warfare.
Gorillas? You take that back. Those slaves are men like you and I.
Gorillas! G-U-E-R!
Well, that's fine then. My mistake.
Look at the discord this issue is causing, Mr. President. I say we shouldn't free any slaves. Mark my words, it'll be women next.
All men are created equal. Men, not women. Those were the words handed down to us by the founders of this nation. Washington, Jefferson, Franklin. They were proud, free,
And the richest slave owners in the country.
The new field of ironclad design is now being used on ships.
Talking with us now, we have the captains of the 2 new ironclad ships. These 2 ships are currently locked in battle, but both captains have agreed to take a break to talk with us.
Hello, Jay.
Can you tell us, how is the fight going?
The enemy cannons are having no effect on our ship. The ship is, for all practical purposes, perfect.
Although I hear your cannons aren't doing much damage to the enemy either, so maybe the ship isn't as perfect as you think.
I see no point in continuing this conversation. Daisy, Daisy.
Yes, thank you, Captain. Let's go now to Commodore Franklin Buchanan, the captain of the Virginia.
Well, hi there, Jay!
Could you explain to our viewers how this technology works.
I can't go into military details. Let's just say we build these ships in a stronger way. Instead of building them out of wood, we use a secret new material.
Iron?
Who told you our secret?
Well, it was just a
Now,
guess.
I don't like to use the word invincible, Jay, but let's just say they've been lobbing cannonballs against the side of our metal hull for 3 hours now. And all I got is this headache and a touch of hearing loss. What was that?
I didn't say anything.
Every day of the week, Jay. Every day of the week.
Who is the weakest Lincoln? Robert. An 11-year-old girl suggested that Lincoln should wear what?
Clothes.
A beard. Jerome. The novel Uncle Tom's Cabin created popular opposition to what practice?
Do-it-yourself builders.
Slavery. Michael. Which act allows poor people from the East to obtain land in the West?
Killing Indians.
The Homestead Act of 1862. Todd. The Dred Scott decision denied what?
It denied the right of a slave to sue for freedom and the right of a territory to exclude slavery within its boundaries. This denial of any rights for the slave contributed to the outbreak of the Civil War by inflaming anti-slavery factors and feeding sectional antagonism.
That is correct, but you are out of time.
A few minutes with Andy Rooney.
When photography first appeared, I was a big fan. It was fascinating to see all the tiny details in these pictures and no annoying brushstrokes. But these days, with all these war photos, the novelty is worn off. We see photos of soldiers after they've enlisted. Then we see them standing in their camps in long rows. Then we see them lying ripped to pieces on the battlefields. I'm starting to think we should go back to paintings. They're more colorful, they show more action, and they're just more fun. In a painting, when you see a soldier dying, he's usually surrounded by his friends and looking up at the heavens. It's a lot more uplifting than seeing a lot of corpses face down in some muddy field.
I see that you voted for yourself as the weakest Lincoln. May I ask why?
I was just trying to get rid of the deadwood on this team so I can get to the end and win that money.
You have got to the end, Jerome. You are the weakest Lincoln. Bye-bye.
When we come back, some new ways to break down that awkward slave-master barrier. The issues that fueled and then sparked the American Civil War and all of the battles between the blues and the grays were not exactly black and white, not even when it came to the issue of blacks and whites. I was surprised to learn that not all of the states in the Union had banned slavery, and in the South, not all slave owners were cruel to the slaves they owned. Some loved their slaves, really loved their slaves. Of course, that led to some problems of its own.
Have you been accused of immoral relations with slave women, or fathering the child of a slave? Are you facing the jealousy of a wife or loved one because of your inappropriate affection for your slave lovers or your unnatural offspring with them? Well, we can help. Whether it's arranging for the auction of an illegitimate child to a new home far away, or ensuring that your slave girlfriends receive the same harsh discipline as the rest of your slave property. At Dubois and Heron, we can solve your slave-related personal problems, because all slaves are created equal.
The slave is happiest when kept in captivity, but sometimes they escape. And when they do, it's up to Steve to get them back.
Well, so what have we got in here, Whitey?
Well, Steve, we're moving these boxes around to ship them up north, and we heard a sound coming from inside this one here, so we're thinking maybe there's a slave crawled in there.
Crikey, we see this quite a bit. The Negro male likes captivity, and he'll crawl into any small space so he can feel like he's even more in captivity. It's a good thing we caught this one when we did. Otherwise, he could end up running around the northern states fighting people. It looks like we've got a full-grown Negro male in there. What a magnificent specimen. Now I'm gonna stick my hand in there, and I just hope he doesn't bite it, making it bleed spectacularly for the camera. Oh, crikey! He's got me!
Yep.
Naughty little Negro! Naughty little slave!
What about the issue of cotton and the slaves who produce it? Will Britain join the war to protect its cotton supply?
Peter, we're not keen on this slave issue. Cotton is important, of course, but if it has to be produced by poor, exploited workers who are mistreated and underpaid just because their skin happens to be darker than ours, we'll have to buy it elsewhere.
And where will you get it?
Our colony of India. The point is, we absolutely must have cotton to keep our cotton mills humming. Otherwise, we will throw thousands of British children out of work.
Well, let me turn to you, Monsieur Autrey. What is the French perspective on America's Civil War?
Well, as far as the French are concerned, we think the South has a right to a distinct society.
Does France want to fight to protect the South?
Oui.
Yes, you.
The yes, we. The French, we. The French, yes, for we. We want to help the South.
You, the French.
Well, yes, that time it was we, the French, but the other time it was we, yes. We want to fight. We, 1,000 times we!
Does France have the army to do it?
No. That Napoleon business, we kind of shot our bolt there.
I've made my decision, Andy. I'm gonna make that anti-slavery speech. Doug, get the train ready. We leave as soon as the route is clear.
You won't regret this, sir. I'll make sure that we have that railway secured by our forces.
What if people need to get in touch with you?
They can reach me at my Gettysburg Address.
Right. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address and later his Emancipation Proclamation changed the focus of the Civil War. Instead of the North fighting to keep the South, they were now fighting to put an end to slavery. Nearly a century earlier, the American War of Independence had been fought over the issue of personal liberty. But it took the American Civil War to show just how far those ideas of personal liberty went. Many people in the South had believed their comfortable lifestyle and rural economy would be destroyed by emancipation. Instead, their lifestyle and economy were destroyed by war, a war which killed more Americans than any other war in history. As General Sherman once said, war is hell. And as I have more than once said, history bites.
I'm here in Philadelphia at Mr. Garment's. Recently, our First Lady, Mary Todd, swept into town and dropped a bundle of taxpayers' money on some really incredible clothes. I spoke to designer Lance Boyle.
The woman is a national treasure. She came in here, yelled at my staff, just like she was royalty. She just had this whole energy about her, electric or jumpy. She smacked one girl and spent a bundle. She must have dropped enough to outfit a regiment.
Wow.
Major shopaholic.